Welcome back to the JMach Podcast, where we are combating veteran suicide one story, one conversation at a time. And I'm your host, JMach. Remember, your mental health matters and you're not alone. Don't hesitate to reach out and pick up your phone and call your friends or family, or head over to jmachpodcast.org to stay connected and get on our social medias. Now enjoy the show. Hey, welcome back to the JMach Podcast. Today I'd like to introduce AJ. Didn't even get to the hard part yet. Today I'd like to introduce AJ Schoonover, active duty Air Force. Oh my, I can't talk today. Enjoy this episode.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's just dive right into your story. But first, I need to ask, how are you doing?
So since I've already watched your podcast,
You prepared this answer?
I was going to go with the generic, I'm good.
Okay, so how are you actually doing?
It's going. Life's it's a struggle some days. It's a roller coaster. I tell people all the time there's ups and downs. Everybody's got their wins and their falls and stuff, and just making it through.
Absolutely. What helps you throughout the day on the hard days?
I would say friends and family. Just reaching out, trying to capture those positive moments even during the darkest times, trying to make people laugh, find some humor in things.
Trips to our local Home Depot.
Yeah, Home Depot.
So, Corey, I met him outside of Home Depot like 3 days ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you just agreed to
just
come
the universe
over here?
met.
That's a lot of trust.
Well, he shared his page first. I went and checked that out, watched several of the videos, and it's inspirational, just
Thank you.
even his question, the follow-up to how are you really doing. I do a lot of family therapy, and that's one of the things that they talk about is don't just go with the surface level answer. Everybody's always like, I'm good or I'm fine, I'm okay, but nobody ever says, like, how are you really doing? And then when you ask it a second time, that's when people open up and are like, well, to be honest, I got this going on. And most people don't talk about it.
It's basically
I'm
saying,
not just saying hi.
I'm not just
I'm asking
saying
how
hi.
you're doing. Like
I'm
by
asking
asking
how
twice, it's
you're
like this is
Yeah.
not just
By
a
asking
greeting.
it twice, it's like,
It's
this is not just a greeting.
I care.
It's, I care.
Yeah, I actually want to know. I want to dive deeper. I hate service level conversations. Like, that's just not for me. I just need to know people. I just want to know, you know? Like, I don't want to hear the bullshit. I know that the first approach is going to be fake. It's going to be a front that everybody has put on. It's like your social media, right? You see the fucking highlights. All right, that doesn't make you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's going on? What makes you who you are? Speaking of what makes you who you are, how was your childhood?
Childhood was an adventure. Parents were separated. They got divorced when I was 2. Didn't really see my dad a whole lot. That's kind of my fault, not his fault. He was tried to be there, but I was a asshole of a kid. Just kind of pushed him away. I was like, I don't need dad. My mom struggled a lot in and out of drugs and bad relationships. But like I said, it was an adventure. Some of the stuff I got exposed to probably wasn't the best, but it made me who I am today. So I learned a lot from the bad people, the drug dealers, drug addicts and stuff, and learned that I didn't want that in life. Became an adult, made some bad choices of my own, and then eventually was like, I need to get out of town, join the Air Force, and thought I was going to do 4 years and turned into 6, turned into 10, and then now we're at 17, going for 20.
Okay, so you're almost there.
Yeah.
But I feel like being okay, I don't feel like anything. Let me rephrase this. I think it just goes to show how you can learn anything from anybody. While maybe you shouldn't have been around the drug dealers growing up, but you had to. That was your life, right? But you got to learn from them. And you were able to make the positive choices and decisions like, okay, this is what they're doing. That's what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And figured out a way how to.
Yeah, I feel like life is all about choices. The opportunities are always there for everybody, but it's about the choice you make with that opportunity. Because, there's some kids that I grew up with, they had great parents. They were married, never got divorced, never had marital problems. Middle-class working families took care of everything. They got what they wanted when they needed it. And they seem like they're struggling more in life than I am. And they had everything in front of them from their parents. They showed them the way, and they still didn't follow. But that's where it comes down to that choice.
Yeah, that choice. I also feel like this is also what's happening in the military, right? We're all getting softer. I don't care what you're saying, right? Each generation is getting softer because the previous generation is trying to give them a better life than they had, right?
100%.
you still had to experience the rougher stuff, so you were built a little bit. You got that mental toughness as a child, as in the people that had like the good lifestyle, they didn't get that mental toughness that you had. So it's almost, it sucks like going through it, but like who wins, right? Not, I guess that's a terrible way to look at it because nobody's going to win. But like, I guess it goes all back to choice. Would you prefer to choose to have the lifestyle you had as a child to be the mental toughness that you have now? Or would you rather have the best childhood and struggle with the mental toughness?
I tell my wife all the time I wouldn't change a thing. All the struggles in life, no matter what they are, I wouldn't change it because it would change who I am today, and I like who I am. Life's good, even in the bad moments. You know, there's blessings that come, and then there's hardships that follow, and that's that roller coaster part, and you just ride the wave until you get that next win, and just enjoy life.
It's also about all the choices you make, right? Because you could choose to see that failure as a failure, or you could see the learning lesson in what you're trying to be taught or trying to learn and how to grow from it. So it hurts less.
Yeah. I actually just saw a post on Instagram, and it was just different images, and one of them was what people don't see, and it's all your failures, right? So it's all these red check marks, and the very last one's a green check mark, and it's like, and this is what people see, and they think it's luck, but they didn't see all the failure you had to get to that point where they think like, oh, you're so lucky, and it's like, I mean, is it luck, or did we make the right choices to get to where we're at? Sometimes it is luck, but choices play a lot into how you got there.
Right. I mean, we always got to feel lucky and grateful, right? But I feel like we're going through that shit right now with the podcast. Like we're going through the hindsight. We're doing all the legwork, the dirty work right now, where like soon enough, things are happening for us already. People are going to be like, dude, must be nice, going to be lucky you, right? Like, no, bitch, where have you been the past 3 to 4 fucking years?
Yeah.
That we've been struggling this, you know? But I wouldn't, like you said, I wouldn't change it, right? It's opening my eyes, different perspective. I'm meeting different people. If you would have asked high school me or anybody in my high school that I would have a podcast or being on video in 20 years, everybody would laugh and say, no fucking way.
No way.
Especially myself. And look, here we are.
That's kind of how the military was. My family was shocked when I said I was joining. I was 21 when I signed up, and they're like, no, you're not. And I'm like, I'm going. And they're like, you don't follow anybody's rules. And I was like, I'm going to follow theirs. And they're like, you'll get kicked out.
Yeah.
And here I am 17 years later.
That's why you're still in, because you've got to give that final fuck you to all the haters back then. What made you choose the Air Force?
So my grandpa was in the Air Force in like 51 to 53. And he always told me I should be a Marine. He was like, you should join the Marines. And I was like, Grandpa, I don't know about that. Like, sounds fun, you know, that toughness sounds like it'd be a rad time, but I heard a lot of things about the Air Force, and I was like, I just want to travel and have a good time. I don't want to be slaving away in a ditch or something.
You want to be cared about and treated like you're on business, yeah.
Yeah, that stigma of the Air Force and, you know, staying in 5-star hotels and stuff is pretty real.
I remember when I first got out, I started to work on base for the ground maintenance company, and I ended up like mowing the airfield. But I remember some of the barracks I'd watch maids leave, like with their cleaning carts. And I'm like, no fucking way, dude. That's wild. I was envious.
Yeah, the Air Force has treated me good. Had a lot of opportunities, a lot of good mentors and stuff. So I don't regret that decision one bit.
What are you doing there for us?
Avionics maintenance on the F-35s. So like anything 5th gen I can work on, but right now I'm on 35s. So
let's talk English for the listeners.
Oh, English. Okay. Avionics. It's like your radar package, your radios, the comm, the navigation, interrogation, anything electronic pretty much.
Okay.
Is what avionics messes with. And then some of the environmental, so the pilot's oxygen and stuff like that, is G-suit, stuff like that.
Did you know that's what you were signing up for, or is that just the luck of the draw?
It was the luck of the draw. I knew I didn't want to be a crew chief. My brother had some friends, they're older than me, they're 4 or 5 years older, and they joined, and they were crew chiefs, and they hated every bit of it. And they're like, don't ever do that. And I was like, all right, so don't be a crew chief. So
all right.
Avoided that one.
So what was leaving home and going to basic training?
It wasn't bad. So like growing up with my mom, we moved a lot anyway. So by the time I was 18, we lived in 18 different houses. all within the same town. We never moved out of town, but we moved a lot of houses. So when it came time to, pack up and move for the Air Force, it was just another trip for me of like, pack your bags, we're going, and just went with it.
But the mindset of being in basic training, I don't even know what yours is like, to be honest.
Back then, it was probably harder than it is now. I feel like they said they're soft now, so they get like stress cards and cell phones and stuff. We didn't get a cell phone. They're like, put that in the closet. You get it 6 weeks later. But it was intimidating. Never played team sports growing up, so to be on a team, to have, I wouldn't say a coach, but when you got your TI yelling at you and stuff, the guy in charge, it was new, but it wasn't. I don't feel like it was bad. I was kind of like in the middle of the pack. I wasn't the guy trying to lead in the front, but I also wasn't the one in the back getting yelled at, getting made fun of and stuff. So it was kind of an easy gig.
For sure. And then how was it getting to your first duty station?
First duty station was good because the people I went through technical training with, there was like 5 of us that went to the same base. So I already knew people. A couple of them had cars, so that helped me out. I didn't have a car when I first got there, so I was bumming rides. Trying to find a vehicle to buy. But I got stationed in Florida, Panama City.
Okay.
And that was probably one of the best places to go when you're 21. Spring break was pretty wild. And the Air Force, like I said, it's not the Marines, it's not the Army, so it seemed like a 4-year vacation while I was there.
What's your day-to-day then?
Now it's a lot of office work, a lot of telling people what to do. So that's kind of a bummer because I'd rather be turning wrenches and fixing things. But, the higher the ranks, the more responsibility. So you're just kind of making decisions.
Yeah, and you can't be that one that wants to be out there with the guys.
Yeah. I tried, and they said no.
Yeah. Because people get intimidated just by your presence.
Yeah.
So knowing that, how do you try to combat that?
So it's kind of turned into more of like trying to mentor the young ones because they're new. Some of them are, 18, 19 years old and not sure what they want to do with life. And I encourage most of them to stay in, but you get the ones that are like, no, I'm done after 4. And I'm like, okay, well then what's your plan for when you get out? So I try to take those opportunities, and that helps give that gratification. I'm not fixing jets, but if I can help somebody make a good decision in life and succeed.
Absolutely. And how do you help, or how has the mental health topic inside the Air Force changed from when you first got in to now?
I don't know if it's really changed much. People still have that stigma of you don't go to mental health. It could affect your career. It could affect your job. I try to persuade people the opposite because I've talked to mental health. I've reached out, used some resources. We're having trouble with a teen at home, so we've done a lot of therapy. And I encourage people, if they're struggling, to use that therapy, whether it's mental health or any of the other agencies that are provided, that it's not a negative connotation to go talk to somebody. Like, it could be super beneficial. It could really change your life if you find the right person and talk about the right things. But if you try to bottle it up, it doesn't always work out that way.
Absolutely. How are you? I know you say you're being open to it and like trying to but encourage people to use those resources. But how are you being the change that's needed?
Kind of leading by example. Like, I tell people all the time my struggles that I got going on. There's a handful, probably a dozen, probably 12 people that like really know the story of our teenagers' problems and what's going on with that. Like, she's currently in residential treatment, been there since October, right? And so that's your 5 months of not being at home. And this isn't the first time she's been. So we've been doing this for a while. And so I've shared that story with several people at work of like, hey, like, everybody's got problems. It's not, like you said, social media shows you one thing, like life's great, but behind the scenes, everybody has something. And it's different for everybody. Like, your childhood shaped you to who you are. So your struggles are different than my struggles, but they're still struggles, just yours and then mine. And so you can't, I try not to knock anybody for their problems. If their problem seems less than mine, I try to make it seem like it's bigger than mine so that they feel comfortable, like, oh, it is a big deal, let's talk about it. Instead of them being like, oh, you're worse off than me, we don't need to talk about my problems. Like, you asking that follow-up question to get somebody to really open up instead of being like, oh, you're fine, so we don't need to ask. Like, there's always something. You start peeling back those layers.
Absolutely. So how are you handling your child being gone, as well as mixing, dealing with the emotional and trauma and stress of home with your personal life? How are you trying to manage it?
It's a day by day thing. There's some that are darker than others. There's some that I have no answers. Like I feel lost in the whole situation and I just want to give up. But it's one of those like you can't give up. Like there's so much to live for. So you just got to find different things. And so I've got little hobbies. You know, we got little 4-wheelers that I work on for the kids. We got big 4-wheelers. We got a Polaris Razor that I work on. We take that out. Got a bunch of guns. You know, everybody's got to have guns. So that's always tinkering with something with those, going out shooting, just anything, even if it's a 30-minute stress reliever a day helps get through those struggles.
Absolutely. What have you, this might be too personal. What have you worked on and changed about yourself since you're not being able to show up potentially for the way your child needs you? Have you worked on yourself?
Yes. And I would say the biggest thing, like with all the family therapy, some of the stuff I've learned about myself or people in general is by default, we get defensive, right? Somebody says something that kind of goes against your character or what you think of yourself. You get defensive. You want to defend yourself and be like, that's not what I meant. You know, like you want to always be a good person. And if somebody says something bad, you know, you get defensive. And I've learned that that's not the best way to respond. And they talk a lot about validation in therapy. And validation doesn't mean you agree with someone, but you acknowledge what they're saying, what their feelings are about what they're saying, and that you heard them. And that's what everybody wants to feel, right? Is you want to feel heard. And that's where validation comes into play. So I've learned a lot about myself and trying to validate people and what they say and kind of push the defense mechanism back a little bit and be a little more open to, okay, what are you saying? Is there something I do need to change that offended you, made you feel a way, or even made you feel that you couldn't talk to me because of how I might respond? So you try to, you know, bridge that gap and take down those barriers, I guess.
For sure. And how have you worked on and healed your inner child?
Oh, I
Your
just let my
inner
inner
child.
child go wild. We just do fun things. Loud
Okay.
music, drive fast, up to the speed limit.
Sure. For DOD
Right
purposes,
up
right?
Yeah, DOD.
All this episode does not represent or endorse anything about the DOD, all right? These are all our own opinions. Disclaimer pop here.
That'll be at the top, don't worry.
On where my hand was, okay.
Okay, sorry, boss.
Look, here's one of those times for the blooper reel of I forgot my train of thought again.
So you're talking about the inner child part, which
Yes.
I watched your podcast. I don't remember the lady's name, but she was talking about trauma, right? Like childhood trauma. And even the amount of therapy that you do, that trauma is still there. It's still in you. So I guess like with my inner child, you know, like that part's still there, but it goes back to I don't want to change it, right? That made me who I am. So you just learn to grow with it, to embrace it. And I use it as examples to help other people through problems they might be having instead of I hate the victim mentality. And so I try to never play the victim with how my childhood was of like, oh, I didn't have anything growing up. My mom didn't do this. I never will say those bad things. I might say like, oh, we moved around a lot. But I don't want it to be a sympathy thing of people being like, oh, you poor thing. Like, that sucks. Your childhood was like that. I want people to be like, dang, that's not that. You know, you overcame that? Yeah. Like, I'm good. It made me who I am, and we're not changing that. That's going to stay.
For sure. Have you had talks with your inner child, or are you just hey, bro, we don't want to talk. We just want to listen to music and drive the speed limit?
It's few and far between with the conversations with the inner child. And those moments when they happen, they're very emotional. There's a lot of emotions that just come out at once, and it's like a bittersweet moment, I guess, but it's exhausting at times, so I would say I kind of avoid it.
Do you allow yourself to cry?
Yeah. Yeah.
What helps you cry?
What helps?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot, I don't know.
because I genuinely believe it's the stronger man that's able to cry, talk about his emotions, and be that is the strong man, not the man that holds everything in and bottles it up and just explodes and erupts in his constant anger. I'm trying not to be that person, and I know it's okay to cry. I preach it, like, cry, dude. I'm very emotional lately. It feels like it's been for a while, but I'm only able to get like 1 or 2 tears out, and then as soon as I take like an inhale or a breath, like my bearings back. Like, yep, can't cry. Even though I'm like, just cry. I want that ugly cry. I need to purge out all these tears.
Man, I think I've only had one ugly cry, and it was one of the most stressful times of my life. I'd just gotten back from a deployment, and during that deployment, my daughter was living with her mom, and that was a mess of its own. And during it, I got an attorney, and I started filing for custody. And so they waited till I was a month out to coming home before they submitted it to the courts. So when I got home, she had got served her papers. She didn't respond, whatever. So eventually, like, I got custody, but that was like the most life-changing event, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it because my kid had never lived with me before that. She was almost 8 at the time and had never lived with me. And then here I was now going to be a full-time single parent. Like, I wasn't dating anybody. I wasn't married. It was just going to be me and my kid. She was going to be moving from Oregon to California. I had just, gotten to a house because I got back from that deployment, and it was the scariest time of my life. And I called my mom for a little bit, got off the phone, and I cried for probably like 15 minutes straight, just being like, what am I doing? How am I going to do this? Because I had support, I had friends, coworkers and stuff, but when you start talking about childcare, who's going to take her to school, who's going to pick her up, who's going to do homework, who's going to cook dinner, like, I was like, man, life's going to change.
For sure.
And it was probably 15 minutes. I was in the garage just staring at everything and just bawling. I was like, oh, shit, here it comes.
But how good you feel afterwards?
Good, yeah. It was one of those, like, a bittersweet moment. The fear was there, but then the strength came, and it was like, you got this, dude. Like, you've been through a lot. This is nothing. You have enough mentors, people, friends, family that will be a phone call away when you need an answer for something, and that was relieved a lot of stress, just knowing that I can lean on people.
I feel like that was a very challenging time for you in life, regardless of getting full custody of your child or not. Like, you're coming home from a deployment, even though it's Air Force, and you probably went to Florida again.
It was Dubai.
Oh, okay, even better. But no, still, you have to come back and be around the day-to-day all over again.
Yeah.
On top of now you're gonna have an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
It was bittersweet. It was good. It's one of those, like, growing up with my mom and not with my dad. Like, I had that strong bond with my mom, and I would have been furious if my dad took me away. So when I had to have that conversation with my daughter of like, hey, like, you got to come live with me, she started crying. She was terrified. She's, leaving her family, her friends and stuff, and moving to another state. But I related to it because I was like, dude, I'd feel the same way if my dad did this to me. Like, I didn't want to leave my mom. But it got better. She embraced it. She came, and we had a good routine right off the bat. Picking her up from school, we'd go grocery shopping, get stuff for dinner, go home, do homework. She'd help me cook. Saturday morning, she'd help make pancakes, help do the dishes and stuff. So it was a lot less stress than I thought it was going to be. So it was great, and it's one of those things, I wouldn't change it for the life of me. It's been part of the journey.
Okay. Speaking of the journey, what made you re-enlist?
Each time's been something different. So, like, the first time, it was probably 2 years after I found out my daughter was mine. So she was 2 when I found out. I'd been in the Air Force for 2 years. So if you do the math, it was when I signed up at MEPS and was waiting to go. Made some bad life choices at the bar, because I was 21. And
or a great life choice.
Yeah. It was a great life choice, looking back on it now. But at the time, people would be like, what are you doing? You're an idiot.
You have to have your final hurrah.
Yeah. So that I lost my train of thought. So what were we talking about?
What made you re-enlist?
Re-enlist, yeah. So the first time it came up, it had a lot to do with knowing that I had a daughter and what could I provide. And moving back home, there wasn't anything. It's a small logging town. I don't want to work in the woods. I don't like the rain. I don't like the cold. I don't want to be tromping through the bushes to cut down trees. I get poison oak really easy, poison ivy, so I didn't want to be out there doing that. So going home was not an option. And so as far as taking care of her, paying child support, providing health care and stuff like that, I was like, I should just re-enlist. And then the second time it was after I had custody, and it was one of those, if I re-enlist, I can transfer my GI Bill benefits and she can go to college. My parents couldn't pay for me to go to college, so I was one of those, like, I could do something for her that I never got. So then once you get to that 10-year mark, then it's just downhill. You just commit for the long haul. But
Right.
yeah.
I do hear people talk about getting out at like 10, 12 years, though. And, I mean, I'm not in that situation, but I'm like, wow, you're almost there. So are you going to, what's your plan?
The 20 is dependent upon the Air Force and what they try to do with me.
Okay.
If they try to send me somewhere I don't want to go, I'll be like, nah, let's retire.
Okay. Where do you want to go next?
To be honest, I don't want to go anywhere. I like Arizona. I like Phoenix. I did get an assignment to Japan, but that's going to get canceled due to my kids' medical stuff right now. But
Okay.
that's okay. It would have been fun. Japan would have been cool. But
Have you, the Air Force actually allows you to stay at one duty station for longer than 4 years?
yeah,
Like easily?
sometimes.
Okay.
They've got some weird things. So, like, I did 4 years at Tyndall in Panama City, and I actually tried to leave early. I was at like 2.5 years, and I got an assignment. They're like, yeah, you're going to go to California. I'm like, let's go. And then they give me a date. They're like, it's 1.5 years from now. And I'm like, is that a typo? Like, what do you mean 1.5 years? Like, what am I supposed to do during that time? Turns out they wanted me to be there for 4 years before I moved, which was fine. Okay. So I hit the 4-year mark, moved to California, went to Edwards, which is near Palmdale. A lot of people hate it. I ended up liking it. I was there for 3 years doing maintenance, normal job stuff, and then like a special duty popped up there, and it was to do TO verifications, and TOs is like your technical orders, like all the directions on how to fix a jet. It's like literally, here's your instructions. And so my job was to verify them, make sure they're accurate and easy to read and follow and stuff. But so I switched over at 3 years to go do that. And when I started that one, they're like, we want you for 4 years to do this job. So I got stuck there for 7.
Okay. Luke Air Force Base is so small.
It is, yeah.
You like that?
I don't mind it.
Okay. See, I'm realizing as I'm talking that, like, to my mentality about the military and what I needed or wanted to be, is not the military at all whatsoever, right? I didn't even have it that bad either, right? I was in the field, but I wasn't always in the field.
Yeah.
I got to do some pretty cool things. Even when I was in the field, I got to have fun. But dude, I couldn't do that shit for 20 years.
No?
No. Not me personally, no. But I wish I stayed in, or I would have loved to. If I could get my ego and pride to the side, I would have loved to join a different branch. But the style that my ego and pride is, there's no way I could have. Or at least that's what I tell myself. Like,
Yeah.
we have the best uniforms. Dude, how can you go from being a Marine to in the Army now?
You can't.
Right.
I think the Marines in general have the most respect from everybody.
I think we're just a little crazier than everybody.
100%. You guys are more crazy. I've worked with the Marines before, and they do some wild things that you're just like, dude, let's not do that. And they're like, no, I can make it work. And I'm like, no, you should not be using a hammer to hit that pin into that gun. Like, that's not how that works. If it doesn't slide in easy, we don't hit it in. He goes, no, I got it. Like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah, it's just boring. The day-to-day's boring. We have
Yeah.
to fill our time with something. I remember, like, in the field, we would have rock throwing Olympics, right? Like, who could throw the biggest, largest rock the furthest. Just the unique games we came up with. Yeah. But you guys are cared about. You guys get to sit down every so often.
Yeah.
That shit's a no-go.
They're trying to restructure it a little bit if you pay attention to any of the politics going on with the military and the Air Force specifically. They're trying to get back to the basics because I feel like we've gotten more of like a corporation style going on where it's just like a 9-to-5 job, and there's no camaraderie like you guys have in the Marines. You guys are family thick and thin. You know, it doesn't matter what's going on. You guys have each other's back. Where the Air Force is kind of like 8.5 hours. My family's calling. I'm going home. You know, instead of like helping each other out, everybody's kind of like, I'm free to go, so I'm going.
Yeah, we didn't have the freedom to just go. We were told when we could or couldn't do things. So yeah, but I do feel I don't understand it to your degree, right? But I do. And I've always been told that like the Air Force is more of like a business. And if you want to be cared about and respected, go to the Air Force. If you want to like fucking play in the dirt and do things, go to the Marine Corps. But like my body wishes I went to the Air Force since day one, you know? But yeah, I definitely can see that, like, especially because like once a Marine, we're always a Marine, but no other branch has anything similar to that. And everybody I talk to, they're all like, dude, or there's a few handful that I remember. They're like, yo, once I was done with the Army, I was done with the Army.
Yeah.
I'm not still a soldier or anything like that. So I see what you're saying.
And that's where like the Air Force being that corporation style, like if you ask a Marine what they are, and you're like, oh, you're in the military? And you're like, oh yeah, what'd you do? And you're like, I'm a Marine, right? The first thing you say is Marine, right?
Right.
And then whatever you did after that, you might say. But for the most part, you guys stick to, I'm a Marine, you know. And then Army, you know, you talk to them, they're like, oh, I'm a soldier. And then they spit out their MOS or something. You know, you ask the Navy, and they're like, I'm a seaman, which sounds weird. I don't know why they call themselves that. But, you know, you ask somebody, you know, if they're in the Air Force, and you're like, oh, you're in the military? And they're like, yeah, I'm a crew chief on 35s. And they're like, oh, so you're in the Air Force. Like, nobody ever says, like, oh, I'm an airman in the Air Force. They go with their job first. Like, you asked me, like, what do you do? Oh, I'm avionics. I didn't say, like, oh, I'm an airman.
Yeah.
But I think that's just that corporation mindset. And we don't have the pride as much as everybody else.
Or you're just smarter and you're able to talk about what the person really wants to know.
Yeah.
All I can say is, like, I was in the Marine Corps.
I throw rocks for a living.
Yeah. Dude. I won, by the way. I beat all the grunts.
Did you get a trophy?
No. I got fucking scolded by my squad leader because I wasn't sitting down reading knowledge with them. But I was building camaraderie with the people we were supposed to be deploying with, you know?
Yeah, the one's going to have your back.
Yeah. It didn't end up making the cut anyways. We got cut from it, but yeah. It was still a good time. I'm grateful for it. And I actually still talk to that kid that scolded me. He didn't say anything to me. He just looked at me. And you know that squad leader, you could just read what they're saying? Yeah. Good times.
There's always one.
Always. But I get bored easy, man. I think that's part. Bro, dude, downtime is terrible time for us because that's when the demons come out. That's when the crazy ideas start happening. Is like if we have too much downtime, or we just start fighting each other,
or start a podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know how to. Is that a low blow or
no? You had downtime. You know, the boredom kicked in. You're like, I got to do something. I don't know the story. I think you need to create a podcast that covers how you got into this.
I can answer it for you in like less than 2 minutes.
Okay.
So a buddy of mine posted, I was struggling with my mental health. I was going to therapy. A buddy of mine posted a meme that said, stop doing the 22 push-ups and pick up the phone and call a buddy. So I had this idea like, oh shit, let's just call a veteran. So I don't know the man personally, but I met him once. He was a former MLB player, and I pitched him the idea for his show to have like a skit where he'll call a veteran like once a day or whatever it is. Yeah. Due to liability reasons, he passed on it, and I told my therapist about it, and she tried to get me to go live in her office telling everybody. And I was like, now you're the crazy one. Let's switch chairs. But I went home and I made a video and I posted it, and that's how I started.
Heck yeah.
In the very beginning, I absolutely despised the thought of being on camera. I mean, I still don't care for it as I'm looking at them. I just block it out.
Yeah. I try not to look at it. It's new to me, though.
Yeah. Well, they're not there. It's just you and I talking.
Yeah. And some guy named Corey.
He's just making sure we hear each other because I'm going deaf. So I needed the audio input in my ears. That's why we're doing this. So we're just chilling with our liquid deaths, you know. But yeah, so I actually broke a 2.5 year sobriety to start the podcast because I was like, I can't talk to anybody unless I'm drunk. I can't have a good show. And I don't have self-control. I have a very addictive personality. And what's the point of drinking just one? There is none. So it was a slippery slope, and it went down to like I was drinking, and then I was waking up with regret, remorse. Like, who do I owe an apology to?
Yeah.
How much did I spend? Where are my car keys? Where's my car? I had kids at that point, so I had to I called it quits on it again.
Well, that's good. It's good
Broke
to
that
quit some
sobriety
things.
after like a year.
How many times have you broke the
I
sobriety?
fell off the wagon a couple of times for sure.
Yeah.
But even in the Marine Corps, I was able to cold turkey, like just quit drinking. I went from like being the one that would guaranteed be drinking to like, yeah, dude, no, I'm trying to work on my fitness right now. I'm not doing it. Like, but something just clicks or breaks in my brain overnight because I'm either going to do it or I'm not. Like,
So you're all in, no matter what you're doing.
yeah,
All in.
all or nothing.
Well,
It's not the best mentality, but
It's not the worst.
it's getting me places.
Yeah.
And thankfully, now that I'm all out on drinking currently, it's helping the podcast grow.
Good, man. That's good to hear.
Although I could probably make valid reasons, like I really should drink for the podcast. I could. Where are all veterans?
I mean,
Drinking.
watching the podcast now, like without you drinking, I feel like you're doing a good job.
Thank
I
you.
like them.
I am getting more comfortable and used to just talking and hearing my own voice. I don't like talking. I don't like hearing myself, as I'm sure Corey will tell you that it probably pisses him off a little bit. And there you go. See, now it's really quiet. But yeah, I don't like talking. So I just want the show to be about you. But then people are giving me feedback that they want me to talk more and share my stories. So
I think
I'm
all
trying.
stories are worth sharing. Yeah.
There's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah.
Like crying, right? Like you can't always cry. You can't always be emotional, but you do need to, and you are allowed to, and it is okay to cry and be emotional, right? There's just limits with everything. Like I said, I have that addictive personality, so I'm either going to do the extreme of one, or I'm just going to have to not do it because I start liking it, I'm just going to keep talking or keep doing whatever.
Yeah.
I just want to feel that enjoyment, that fulfillment.
It's good.
So you have to go to work today?
I do. I'm not looking forward to it, but yeah.
Yeah, good thing it's just a liquid death, right?
Yeah.
What do you love so much about Arizona? Where did you grow up? What state?
So I grew up in Oregon.
Oregon.
Pacific Northwest. It's got its rainy days, its cloudy days, and a few days of sunshine during the summer. I had a good time when I was a kid. I used to go out and play in the mud, whatever, ride four-wheelers, get dirty.
Yeah.
It could be snowing, and we'd be out riding, didn't stop me. But now I'm like, I don't like my fingers being cold. I don't like my toes being cold.
So you're one of those snowbirds now, huh?
And Arizona's got, the heat doesn't bother me. We got a pool in the backyard, so when it gets, 115, you just go jump in the pool. And during the winter is like perfect time to do any and everything outdoors. So
This all goes back to the Air Force has air conditioning buildings.
Yeah.
So
And that's probably, the higher the ranks, the more office stuff you do. And so I've been inside for the last 5-6 years. I don't really like being, cold and stuff.
man,
It's
can't
rough.
wait for your airman to hear this one. He's getting soft, guys. Pick on
they're,
him.
They're soft too. They got
Look at you being defensive.
Yeah. They've got this taco truck that comes every morning, and those guys are like,
Ralph's?
Ralph's.
Yeah, I used to love that truck.
And it's like clockwork. The airmen are like, it's 8:15. And I'm like, no, you need to. And they're like, oh, can I get my burrito first? And I'm like, yeah, go get your burrito. That's every day. They're soft. They got to have that burrito in the morning.
But who's to blame? Them?
Oh, I'm to blame because I allow it.
Well, I wasn't going to say you. I was going to go to the Air Force, all right? But yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of things with the softness that I catch myself. I'm like, I'm to blame for that. I could have enforced the standard more, held people more accountable for their actions. And I'm like, I failed them.
But I mean, like, getting food isn't necessarily failing them or making them soft, right?
I mean,
Just because you
burritos
never
make
had
you
that
soft.
option. Oh, yeah. Well, now that's because you guys got a PT.
Yeah.
But I have no room to talk. However, I'm also in the first Civ Div. I'm a civilian now. I'm out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I still got a couple years for that.
Yeah, but you're up there in ranks right now, so you don't even have to do the test anymore.
No,
huh?
we do. We still have to do it.
What, someone pushes you down in the chair? Or what?
I wish. No, the standards do get easier the older you get, but it's kind of funny watching some of the younger kids that struggle, and you're over there doing like more push-ups than them, and you're like, come on, dude, like push them out, let's go. They're like, I can't. And I'm like, yeah, you can. You got 3 more in you. Like, we're not done.
It's so crazy looking back, or just like developing like my mental awareness and understanding of things, that how mental everything is, right? Like they can't do the push-ups. Well, yeah, they also got to do the physical work, but they have that mental block telling them they can't do it, so they're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And if only it was that simple of like, dude, just change your mindset.
That's one thing about the military, though, is I feel like it teaches you a lot that you don't learn as a civilian. Like the mental toughness of like, it's mental, push through it, because everybody's going through the same thing at the same time-ish, If you're having, hard days at work, everybody else having a hard day too. You're not the only one. Where in the civilian world, you're kind of just, people keep it to themselves. You show up like you might, I don't know what civilians do for jobs anyways, unless you're a construction worker.
Podcast.
Like if you work at a bank, like what's a hard day at a bank? Like you misplaced a check?
Yeah, they lost millions of dollars. No big deal.
But it's not even on them. It's federally backed or whatever. I don't even know how the bank works. But
Right, but I think the military almost babies us in a sense where you really have to fuck up to lose your job.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I've seen that a lot.
That bank teller could literally lose their job because they lost that check.
Yeah.
And then there's people that should be kicked out of the military, but they can't because they got that contract.
That red tape's always in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But military, bank teller, construction worker, there's goods and bads in every aspect of it. There's good freedoms, there's bad freedoms. Like everything that I was trying to run away from in the Marine Corps is everything I need in my life to make my mental state better, right? I need that routine. I need that structure. I need that schedule, right? Now I have like all this white space that I have to come up with ideas to fill. And I'm like, oh, shit. And that led me to get complacent for a long time. And I was just comfortable doing nothing. And so I self-isolated. And now I'm like digging myself out of that hole. But yeah, it's a wild ride.
That's probably my biggest fear of getting out is what am I going to do next? Because I don't think aircraft maintenance is going to be the path I take. Not that it's a bad one. I just don't think I want to do it anymore. But so I'm not sure what I'm going to do. But I got to do something.
Yeah, well, obviously plan that shit before you get out because I was like, dude, I could wing this shit. I can go be a cop. I could do this. And then one little incident deviated everything, right?
Yeah.
But you could take your skill set that you learned from AV to being a leader, and you can go be manager somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or
100%.
something similar than that. Because at the end of the day, you're just managing kids now.
Yeah. So the wife's medically retired. She did 9 years. And so she doesn't really have
Must be nice, right?
She likes it. Yeah. But so she doesn't have a job. Eventually I'll be out of the Air Force, and so I won't have that job anymore. But we talk all the time about like, what are we going to do? And we go back and forth between random stuff, but a lot of it revolves around like, we want to help people, we want to give back. Like, I don't want to just be a business owner. I don't want to be a grunt worker. I don't want to just work at a warehouse managing people. We want to have an impact on people's lives and be able to give back. The off-road community, we do a lot of stuff with them, and watching the companies give back to the community, donating parts, putting on events, cooking food. They do all types of things at all these different events we go to, and it inspires us to want to do more. So we've given like some of our own stuff. We're like, hey, let's donate this to a raffle that's raising money for a charity or something, and then we end up winning something, and somebody's like, oh, you guys are so lucky. And I was like, is it luck? I was like, you realize like we pushed this, we donated stuff. Like, I look at karma as a real thing, and we try to put good out there, and good comes back. Obviously there's some bad. You can't avoid flat tires and stuff or dead batteries, but
that's just part of the trip, right?
Yeah.
But as you're talking, I could just see, although I've only met you and your wife once in a parking lot, right? That spontaneously. I could see you two doing like a travel adventure, like I don't necessarily want to say a podcast, right? But I can see you
Yeah, I don't
guys
want to
just,
steal your thunder.
nah, dude, take it, bro.
But hey, I got questions
space for
afterwards.
everywhere.
Off
for
camera, I've got
everyone.
questions about podcasts.
All right, do it, man. I feel like you guys could really do that. You love the adventure space, right? So I can see you guys having like a little mobile home, not a mobile home,
Like an RV.
yeah, an RV. Thank you. And just traveling around and going to the desert and just like sharing your guys' shit and being vulnerable with each other and hating each other and everything in between, you know. And that'd be helpful because you're putting that shit out there because you're gonna have to. You're going to be working through that transition as I don't know how long ago your wife got out, but I'm sure she's still working through her transition.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to help, and then you can start your own off-road something.
We've actually talked about a podcast type thing before, and the idea of it was we go to these like expos, right? Like they got the Dirt Expo at the stadium and stuff over in Scottsdale, and you go and you got all these big vendors, all these big companies that are in the off-road community, and they're selling parts, giving out merch and stuff, and nobody goes and gets personal with them, right? Like you just know them as a company that you can look up online. They sell you parts. You wait for that 10% off code to come in your email to buy from them. But like our idea of a podcast was to like interview those people, to get to know them. Like, how did they start their business? What was, like, you asked me about my childhood, like what led them on their journey to where now they have a business that people want their parts. And so we've talked to a lot of people, just like randomly talking to you in the parking lot. We've talked to a lot of business owners that are in the off-road community, and they're all great people. And I feel like their stories should be told, but they're humble. They're just working and providing, doing what they do. And it's like nobody's highlighting them on what they do. And I feel like somebody should do that for them, like highlight their accomplishments and what they do for the community. Like they give back and get no credit. Everybody's like, oh, I won a prize. And they just walk off and they're like, thanks. And we're going up. We didn't even win sometimes. And we're like, hey, thanks for what you do. Thanks for donating. Thanks for that raffle item you just let somebody take. And they're like, yeah, it's no big deal. And I'm like, it is a big deal. Like that's your hard-earned money you just gave away. Who does that? I don't do that. Well, I guess I do sometimes, but most people don't. Like money's tight. Money's hard to come by for most people, and you don't just give it away.
For sure. So my favorite meme, and I've been saying this for probably 2+ weeks now, Corey could probably recite it for me, is make it exist, then make it good. So what I'm telling you is go home and start this idea with you and your wife, whether it's just you guys recording each other talking about it or what. Well, you know what? I'll do the same thing my therapist did. You got your phone on you?
No, we're not doing it.
You got Facebook?
What are we doing? We going live?
That's exactly what she wanted me to do in her office. Say, hey, friends, I'm going to start this podcast, and it's going to be combating veteran suicide. But yeah, so I challenge you by the end of this year to start your podcast or your little skit, your interview. And at the bare minimum, that sounds like a very unique marketing tool that you could turn yourself into like a marketing company for these businesses where I know you want to probably do it for free potentially, right? But you could probably charge these companies to come in and make this video almost like a mini docuseries about them. Yeah. And push them and promote them. So there's a lot of avenues you can go.
Great idea. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's your idea, brother. Thank yourself and your wife.
Your encouragement means a lot.
Oh, yeah. My pleasure.
Seeing somebody else start it and go with it, like you got your podcast, definitely is a little bit of inspiration to be like, hey, it's possible.
What you see now is, I don't know what you expected, right? But I'm going to let you know I started off on Zoom.
On Zoom?
Zoom audio. And you know what I did? An hour before I told everybody it was coming out, I called a buddy, like, bro, I fucked up. I procrastinated too long. I need you to come on the episode. And then I also used that as an excuse so I didn't edit it, that it was real and raw conversations. And I was just in my own way. And now we have a professional audio engineer doing a killer job. And I got my own soundboard. We got our own soundboard. We're in our own studio area.
So we've got one of those soundboards, and I don't know how to use the dang thing.
Meaning, I know how to push the buttons.
So you just put like drum sets on it, and I just go back and forth and try to make beats. But I'm not a DJ. I can't do beats. I try, but I can't.
Yeah, that's fine. But so you have all the tools. Now you just gotta get out of your own way.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that's stopping you.
Yeah,
because let's say it doesn't take off as a business, but it could be that stress. It's going to be like golf. I don't know if you golf at all.
I do.
But golf is the most stressful, stress-relieving thing. And that's what this could be for you.
Yeah.
So, any saved rounds, anything I missed?
I don't think so.
How can people find you?
Instagram's the one we use the most. It's Undisputed Adventures. There's an underscore in between Undisputed and Adventures.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you also got your business name already down.
Yeah, this is where like me and the wife have went through so many different ideas, and obviously I have a job, so I'm not desperate
So you have
for
funding.
work. But we come up with these ideas, and then I get scared. I get intimidated. Everything seems like a lot of work, even though I do a lot of work right now. Like work's work, but it seems easy because I do it every day. But starting a new adventure is terrifying. And so we've talked about T-shirts, right? Like, well, maybe we'll make T-shirts. And then I've seen, companies fail at making T-shirts. I'm like, well, I don't want to be that guy. Like, we actually have a heat press at home, but we don't ever use it. I've never even turned it on. But one day we might make T-shirts.
All right, so now I need you to help me, and I need you to start making merch for the podcast, and that's how you can help.
I mean, that gives me an excuse to buy a laser engraver so we can, take like the Yeti cups and stuff, and we can etch your
Okay,
your
I'm
stuff
not asking you to buy any of that if you want to. I'm trying to get you to use what you already have. Now you sound much like me. Oh, I want to do this, but I don't have XYZ. But you have ABC already.
It sounds like I need a 3D printer too. So
Why don't you just buy that DTF transition printer
Oh, yeah, I
thing
need that too.
that
Yeah.
just does it all for you?
Yeah, I'll look at the budget and see what we can afford this year.
Or you can just get out of your own way and start using what you have.
That's true.
Pay another company to do it at that point.
That defeats the purpose. Yeah.
All right, AJ, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate
Appreciate it. Awesome.